Everybody will have to put their headsets on because I only speak English, sorry. I'm going to be talking about the little baby pig and baby pig milk replacer and colostrum management. And when I'm talking about baby pig milk replacer, I just want you to know that you can't use any old milk replacer. You know, there's so much difference in milk replacers, and you need one that's designed specifically for the baby pig. And in the baby pig formulas, we use proteins that clot. That's very important. But anyway, I just want to thank you for inviting me to Ecuador, and it's an honor to speak at your conference. Now, a lot of people, they say to me, John, why should I be concerned with baby pig milk replacer? I have the best genetics in the world. I have the best milking sows. I have a good nutrition program. Why should I consider using baby pig milk replacer? But you see, even if you have the best genetics in the world, the sow is not the perfect rearing machine. She's got some built-in limitations. The sow lets down milk once an hour, and it's only for 1 or 2 minutes at a time. It's not continuous like a lot of people think. On the bottom picture to the left, you'll see an older parity sow. She's laying on the bottom 2 or 3 nipples, and that means 2 or 3 little pigs can miss out on a feeding. They're not born with a big energy reserve, so if they miss that first feeding, they're in serious trouble. And then the picture in the middle, the born live is going up all over the world. You know, we're getting more pigs born, and sometimes they farrow more pigs than there are nipples. And it just depends on whether you have somewhere to transfer them or not. And then, I don't know if you realize, but there's not an even milk supply along the udder. Okay, there's not an even milk supply. You know which pigs get, the front nipples give more milk and more colostrum? You know, the back nipple gives less colostrum and milk. And you know which pig gets the front nipple, right? And you know which pig gets the hind tit, right? The little guy. So if we want nice, uniform pigs at weaning, we have to take care of the litters. And then this other one, I believe this is on your bottom right, this is one that a lot of producers don't recognize. It's there every day in the farrowing room, but producers just don't think about it. Sometimes by the time that the little pigs are a week old, they've grown so much that there's not enough physical space at the udder. You've got plenty of nipples, but there's just not enough space at the udder. You've got a litter of 11, and 9 are nursing. 2 are trying to get in, but they can't get in. There's plenty of nipples, but there's just not enough space at the udder. And there's also damaged nipples. You know, there's nipples that are mastitic. But see, this is happening in every litter in Site 1. It's not just a litter here and there, it's every litter. Why do we always have 1 or 2 or 3 pigs that fall behind? It's the limitation of the sow. Some sows can have a very good milk supply, but there's individual pigs that just can't get at the milk. The other thing is that the sow just can't produce enough milk, period. And I don't care what your genetics is, I don't care what your nutrition program is, the sow just cannot produce enough milk. The sow is a limiting factor as far as piglet growth. This was an experiment that was done at Cornell University, and Dr. Dean Boyd conducted this test. Dr. Dean Boyd used to be the head nutritionist for PIC in the United States. But what they did is they farrowed these PIC sows, and one group they reared normally, you know, that's the yellow line. The green line, what they did is they let the little pigs have colostrum for 24 hours, and then they took the little pigs away and fed them pure milk. They raised them artificially. And look at the 21-day weaning weights, 9.8 versus 6.4 kilograms. How would you like to have 9.8 kilogram pigs at 21 days? Maybe we could skip Site 2. I'm just teasing. We couldn't afford to feed them, but I just want you to know the tremendous potential that those baby pigs have. Also, the sow only produces about 60% of the milk that the baby pigs actually need for optimum growth. The litters are short, almost 22 liters of milk a day they're short every day to get optimum growth for the piglets. So the sow just can't produce enough milk. The other thing is, when it's very hot, guess what? In lactation, the sows don't eat as much feed, do they? And I've been traveling in Latin America and in Ecuador, and it's been pretty hot some days. And we did a big experiment where we put one group of sows at a hot environment, 32 degrees C, that's the yellow line. We had another group in a normal environment, 21 degrees C, that's the green line. And do you know that the sows in the hot environment produce 30% less milk? We always get a good response to milk feeding, but we actually get a bigger effect in the summer than we do in the winter because the sow isn't eating as much lactation feed. She's not putting down as much milk. Now, the other thing that's happened all over the world, and I think it's happening here in Ecuador, but the born live is going up. Right? The born live is going up. In the United States, 5 years ago, we had 11 born live. Now we're probably averaging 12 and a half born live. I have the milk in Europe, and in Europe, they're weaning at a later date. They're weaning at 28 days, and I think that the sows are in better shape reproductively. And guess what? They're putting down 14 to 16 live-born pigs. Okay? Our goal in the United States used to be 30 pigs per sow per year. Well, now in some countries in Europe, it's 35. And I was on one farm in Holland or the Netherlands, and the producer had 14 born live, and he told me that out of every 100 litters, 10 sows put down over 20 live pigs. But the reason I'm telling you this is, you know that as the litter size goes up, the birth weight goes down. We've got smaller pigs. As the litter size goes up, the number of small pigs under a kilogram goes way up. And then also, when the litter size goes up, we have more variation in the piglets. So actually, with the modern genetics and the born live that we're getting, there's more potential to feed the milk now than ever before. Do you know Dr. John Dean? Have you ever heard his name from the University of Minnesota? He's pretty well known all over the world, but Dr. Dean most of his research he spent looking at the pigs in Site 2 and Site 3, and specifically he's looking at the variation in the pigs, and he's looking at what happens to the small pigs. And in 2006, we had a seminar, and Dr. Dean was our guest speaker, and he asked a question that day that turned on a light bulb for me, okay? I've read all of Dr. Dean's papers, but this just changed my thinking. But what he said, he asked this question. He said, in a farrow-to-finish operation, where is the greatest opportunity to capture profit? What would you say? Do you know what he said? The bottom 30% of the pigs by weight. He said anybody can raise the top 70% of the pigs, but it's what you do with the bottom 30% that's going to determine your profit or loss. And I believe that's really true. Now, a lot of producers, they look at those bottom 30% of the pigs by weight, they look at them as problem pigs. No, they're opportunity pigs. They're potential profit pigs. So we have to start looking at those pigs a different way. And I'm going to show you the technology today that we can use to help these small pigs. And I want to stress this through my presentation. The biggest effect of the milk is on the smallest pigs. And the biggest effect of the milk, it's not in Site 1. The biggest effect of the milk is in Site 2 and Site 3. And I'd like to talk a little bit, before we get into the milk, I would just like to talk a little bit about colostrum management. Colostrum is very, very important for those baby pigs, right? And let me ask you this, I just want to go over colostrum a little bit. For me, it's so important. You should be doing colostrum management. But let me ask you this, does a sow that has 16 pigs, does she have any more colostrum than a sow that has 12? No. Not the first 24 hours at least, okay? And then, did you know that IgG is the main immunoglobulin in colostrum? And there's a direct relationship between survival and the amount of IgG that the baby pig takes in. If you have a higher IgG consumption, the survival of the baby pig goes way up. But did you know that IgG is very high at birth, and then 1 to 2 hours after birth, it drops way down? So what that means is that pigs that are born later in the litter, they might be getting as much colostrum, but they're not getting as much IgG. And then we already talked about that problem about which pigs get the front nipples, which pigs get more colostrum. You know there's an uneven colostrum supply along the udder. And then did you know that pigs that are born later in the litter, some of them are actually born oxygen deprived or starved? I guess every time the uterus contracts, it kind of shuts off the oxygen to the little pigs in the uterus. And some of the pigs that are born later in the litter, they'll be gasping for breath. And you know what? They can lay on the floor and not go up and get colostrum for up to an hour. And then if they're very cold and wet, boy, does that affect colostrum consumption. All right? Now let me ask you this. If you're the last pig that's born in the litter and you're small, and you fall out on that cold, wet floor, what do you think your chance of survival is? Almost zero. So I just, one good thing about Latin America is labor is a lot cheaper than in the United States. Labor is very expensive. I can't get anybody to do colostrum management, but here we can do it, and it's so important. Now, when I'm talking about colostrum management, we like to do split suckling of each litter, the first 12 hours. And by split suckling, if you had a litter of 12, then, we dry them all off, put them under a heat lamp, and we'll put the 6 smallest pigs out first, and we put them up to the udder, we make sure they get a nipple, we let them nurse an hour, and then we put all the pigs out. And we try to do that twice in the first 12 hours, and that will give you good colostrum management. And I also know there's some herds in Latin America here, because the labor's cheap, they actually strip the colostrum out of the sow, and one unit, they give the small pigs 3 feedings of 10 cc's of colostrum, like in the first 12 hours. So, but if you get that colostrum in those little pigs, you will not believe the difference in performance and survival and all of that. It's very, very important. But there are some products on the market that they have colostrum fractions. Now, in most of these products, what they do is they take the immunoglobulin away, because the pig can only absorb the immunoglobulin the first 12 to 18 or 18 to 24 hours, and after that the gut closes. But the part that the colostrum factors, all of those the pigs can absorb directly, and there's lactoferrin in there, there's active peptides, nucleotides, but those are some good products. They don't replace the colostrum, but they activate the immune system so that little pig gets up and gets the colostrum. So colostrum management is very important. And there's just one little thing here. They say that only about 45% of the sows that are producing 12 to 13 pigs actually can supply enough colostrum. So don't you think it's important to manage the colostrum for those very small pigs? Okay, now we've got 2 technologies with the milk. One is called supplementation. With supplementation, we can provide milk to every litter. Now, we're not trying to replace the sow. We're just trying to help her. The sow doesn't have enough milk. Now, it's very important when we do supplementation, the little pigs have to be established on the udder before you start milk supplementation. If you didn't establish them on the udder, they might drink the milk and then not nurse the sow. But, we have to let them have 24 hours to be established on the udder, then we can start the milk feeding, okay? And we feed the milk cold or room temperature. We don't warm the milk. They would overconsume. If we warm the milk, they might drink the warm milk and not nurse the sow. But if you let them get established on the udder for 24 hours, they'll go over to the nipple of the sow, the warm nipple, they'll drain her, and then if they need extra milk, they'll run over to the feeder and get it. Now, you can feed the milk by hand, and I've been all over Latin America, and I do not like plates. Do you understand what I mean when plates? Okay, because everywhere in Latin America, plates. And I don't like plates or pans because the little pigs walk in them, they get manure in them, they waste the milk, they get wet. And do you know how the workers pour milk into those plates? They're standing way up here with the bucket or the pail and the pan's down there, and they dump it and it splashes all over. I don't like that. And the other thing is, one of the biggest tips for feeding milk by hand, you never want to let the milk run out. Let's say that the milk was out for 5 hours, and then you reintroduce the milk, then the little pigs will gorge, they'll fight, they'll overconsume. Sometimes they can be so full, they might not nurse the sow the next couple times she lays down. So I don't like the plates, okay? So you can have a hand feeder. You know, these, we call them gallon jugs. That's like almost 4 liters. And there's not much milk that's exposed. You know, there's just a little bit down in the cup. And then, you know, we've got a 4-liter capacity there for the litter. We also have automated systems where we have a cup up in the corner of every crate. We've got some of the automated system at the trade show that you could come and look at if you want to. But the automated system is very nice, you know, because with the hand feeders you'll get a feed efficiency of 1.2. With the automated system you'll get a feed efficiency of 1. And with the automated system the milk is in front of the pigs all the time. But a good way to start is with the hand feeders, but there's several different ways. With the automated system there is a mixer and a reservoir. There's also a control panel, you know, that's hooked up to hot and cold water. We can normally hook up 120 cups or 120 crates on one milk system. Now let's look at the benefits of supplementation. Now I want to say this about milk supplementation. It's the easiest technology, it's the easiest milk technology to adapt, and it not only has a big effect on the baby pig, it also has a big effect on the sow, especially in the hot weather. Now, in the United States, I'm going to tell you or recommend to you how we would feed the milk after I show you my data, and I think you'll agree with me. But in the United States, the milk is cheaper, and we have producers that supplement every litter. But in Latin America, a lot of producers, what they do is they'll put their tiny pigs on the bottom 25% of the sows, and those are the ones that they'll supplement by hand or with the automated system, you know. Okay, let's look at some of the benefits of milk supplementation. Now, these are the benefits on the sow. Normally when we supplement the litters with milk, the sows maintain more body weight. They don't milk down as far. And this is especially true in the hot weather, but this was a study that we did in the United States, and in the United States we look at the sow body condition and we assign a score between 0 and 5. And on this study, the litters that were supplemented with milk, they had a body score of 0.50 better, okay? And I don't have a slide on this, but in a lot of farms that we work on, the litters that they supplement with milk, the sows have a much higher rate of sows that are rebred on the next farrowing. Another thing that we see all the time almost is we reduce the wean to estrus time. In this case it was a day, and you know those are empty sow days, they're very valuable. The other thing is that we normally reduce the pre-weaning mortality when we supplement the litters. Normally it's between 20 and 30%. In this experiment, this was in a 25,000 PIC herd, we reduced the mortality from 11.5 down to 6.5. That was a 39% reduction in pre-weaning mortality. They're farrowing almost 11 live pigs. We saved a half a pig a litter. And if you multiply, they're weaning at 19 days. And if you multiply that out, we saved 1.2 pigs per sow per year. But normally, if you're at a 12% pre-weaning mortality and you supplement every litter, we can normally get it down to 9. You know, if you're at 10% pre-weaning mortality, we can get it to 8. If you're at 8, we can get it to 7. But normally we reduce the pre-weaning mortality. The other question that we had, and these experiments I'm showing you, we're feeding milk from 24 hours after birth until 19 or 21 days, okay, so, you know, they're all the same. But the other question we had when we supplemented milk to each litter is, are the pigs more uniform? Now that's one of our goals. We would like all the pigs to be more uniform at weaning. And so in this experiment, we generated the weight distribution curves at weaning. The green curve is the milk curve and the yellow curve is the control. And if the curves are the same shape, the pigs are not more uniform. So when we supplemented every litter with milk, guess what? The pigs weren't more uniform. But I can make them more uniform, but then I have to strategically feed the milk in the farrowing crates. Now, you can see that all the milk-fed pigs were heavier because, you know, the green curve moved ahead. So all of the pigs were much heavier when they were supplemented with milk. The other thing is that we normally give you a heavier pig, and in this experiment we supplemented until 19 days, and the pigs were 0.45 kgs heavier. The pigs were 450 grams heavier at weaning at 19 days. Now, just a little rule of thumb with the milk, if you're supplementing, if I put 250 grams of milk powder in the little pig, he's going to be 250 grams heavier at weaning at 19 to 21 days. If I put 500 grams of milk powder in, he's going to be 500 grams heavier. It doesn't matter about the sow's milk. And that weight advantage that I have at weaning in site 1, it multiplies 6 times through site 2 and site 3. That's in the United States, but we take the pigs to 125 kilograms. So it might be a little bit different here, but another question we had is, you know, when we supplement the milk to every litter, are we reducing the number of small pigs going to site 2? And here we looked at, are we reducing the number of small pigs under 3.63 kilograms going to site 2? And we reduced it by 52%. I have another large study where they're weaning, this one was weaning at 19 days. I have another large study where we were weaning at 21 days, and we looked at, did we reduce the number of pigs under 4.5 kilograms, and we reduced it 55%. So I've got 2 large studies that say when we supplement every litter, we reduce the number of small pigs going to site 2 by 50%. Now, these are 2 of the most important tables that I want you to remember today. Now, when Dr. Dean, you know, he said that we had to concentrate on the bottom 30% of the pigs. And when we do all of these experiments, we're looking at the average. But you know, the average can be very deceiving. If I weigh 200 kilograms and you weigh 100 kilograms, the average is 150. But boy, there's a big difference between us. You know, and what's more important is not the average, but it's what's happening to these small pigs. That's what we want to know, what's happening to these small pigs. And in this experiment, you know, we're weaning at 19 days, but we had the birth weights of the pigs. So we divided them down into small, medium, and heavy by their birth weights. And I've got the kilograms down in the corner there for you guys. I hope you can see it down in the corner there. The small pigs were under 1 kilogram. The medium pigs were between 1.1 and 1.8 kilograms, and then the big pigs were over 1.8 kilograms, right? Now remember, I told you that the average was 0.45 kilograms heavier, but now look at the small pigs. They're 0.82 kilograms heavier. The medium pigs were 0.36, and then the big pigs were 0.73. We actually got the biggest response on the smallest pigs. Isn't that what we want? Now, what if all of the small pigs, the smallest pigs in your production facility, what if they were 0.82 kilograms heavier coming out of site 1? What effect would that have in site 2? That would be big, wouldn't it? We have the data in site 2. Now, in this case, we weaned at 19 days, and they were in site 2 for 35 days. Now, out of site, usually, if I have them in site 2 49 days, usually 1 kilogram at weaning, it doubles through site 2. but in this case we only had them in site 2 35 days. But look what happened here now. The average was that they were 0.82 kilograms heavier, but the small pigs were 2.66 kgs heavier. The medium pigs were 0.55 kgs heavier, and then the big pigs were 1.19. Look at that. Now, what if all the smallest pigs on your farm were 2.66 kgs heavier going into site 3? Do you think that would have a positive effect? So I want to stress to you that the biggest effect of the milk is on the smallest pigs, and the biggest effect of the milk is not in site 1, but it's in site 2 and site 3. This was a study that we took all the way through site 3. This was in a 25,000 sow herd, PIC herd, and you can look at the data 2 different ways. Like I said, in the United States, we take them to 125 kilograms, and one way we looked at the data is we calculated the days to 125 kilograms. And you know, the pigs that were started on the milk, they reached 125 kilograms 5 days sooner. Now that's the average, but just think what was happening to the small pigs in that group, okay? Or the other way you could look at the data is you could look at, you know, just look at the weight difference when you ended the experiment. And when we did that, the pigs that were supplemented with milk, they were 3.2 kilograms heavier out of site 3. And now in this case, out of site 1 at weaning, they were only 0.29 kgs heavier. And if you work that out, the weight multiplied 11 times through site 3. Remember I told you it was 6? If it was 11, every one of you would be feeding milk, believe me. Okay? But in this case, it was 11. This is another one of Dr. Dean's tables. And now he's looking at where can we capture profit in site 2 and site 3. And of course, we always want to look at average daily gain and feed efficiency, right? Feed is expensive, so we always have to look at average daily gain and feed efficiency. That's correct, but actually Dr. Dean said we can capture more profit if we reduce the culls. You know, those are the bad pigs that you have to take out. The deads, you know, if you lose a 50 kilogram pig, you've got a big investment in that pig, right? And then the lights are the pigs that don't hit the target weight. And when we supplement the litters, we dramatically reduce, you know, the culls, deads, and lights. Now, we have another technology, and we call it the Birthright deck. And what we're doing with this technology, we normally have one of these decks for every 12 farrowing crates. It's in the farrowing room. It's sitting up above the crates, between 2 crates on a divider, you know. And normally what we're doing is we're taking one small pig out of the litter. The deck holds 12 to 15 little pigs. We're taking one small pig out after 48 hours, after they've had the colostrum. You know, we're putting 1 or 2 of the smaller pigs up into the deck at 48 hours. Now, we're doing this for 4 main reasons. Number 1 is to save pigs. You know, that small pig, he can't get crushed to death in a deck. The small pig, he won't starve to death in the deck. And actually, I can get the maximum gain on that small pig in the deck. The other thing is, not only do we want to save that pig, but he has to turn into a good market pig. He has to perform in site 2 or site 3, otherwise we don't want to save him, right? The other thing is, do you know that a lot of sickness and disease comes into the litters via the smaller pigs? They get crowded out, they don't get the colostrum, they're usually the first pig in the litter that gets sick, and we feel that if we deal with these small pigs separately, maybe the rest of the litter will stay healthier. And then another factor is, let's say that you're farrowing, you know, 11 live pigs, and we put 1 up in the deck. Now the pigs that are remaining on the sow, they're dividing the sow's milk by 10 instead of 11. So you should raise all the weaning weights of the pigs that remain on the sow also. Now, when we first started the deck technology, we had some producers that they wanted to put the deck in a separate room, you know, not above the farrowing crate. They thought it would be easier to clean and manage and watch the pigs, you know, if they had the decks in a separate room. Now, we did that, but when we put it in a separate room, the survival rate of these small pigs was between 80 and 85%. If I put it in the farrowing room, the survival rate was 85 to 90%. And now, this is what I feel. I feel that we can handle the environment better in the farrowing room. You know, these decks are above the farrowing crate and heat rises. So then we're not getting the drafts, you know, the temperature is more constant. Another thing, then these little pigs, they're exposed to every disease organism that their litter mates are exposed to. So they develop the same immunity, so we can wean them at the same time. And then the third thing is, guess what? When the sow lays down and she starts nursing and grunting, guess what? The little pigs in the deck, they jump up and drink milk too. So they get in the same cycle as their litter mates. This is just a table that shows the mortality in those small pigs. Now, if we don't intervene with the milk technology, the pigs under 0.68 kilograms, there's almost a 60% mortality. If they're between 0.68 and 0.86, it's about 34. If they're 0.87 to 1.09, it's about 24. These are the guys that we're dealing with in the decks. Now, we did a big experiment, and we wanted to show that we could raise these small pigs better than the sow, and actually that they would turn into a better pig. So what we did is we took 400 small pigs. They're all under 1.14 kilograms. You know, they averaged a kilogram. And for our control, we put 400 of these small pigs on second and third parity nurse sows. That's the way a lot of producers deal with the small pigs. You know, they put them on a good nurse sow. Okay, now the other group that we put through the decks, we had to let them have colostrum for 48 hours, but then we put them in the decks, and we took them all the way out to market through Site 3, and only 50% of the small pigs that we raised on the nurse sow survived to market. 81% survived out of the deck. This is all the way to market. If you multiply that out, that's a pig and a half per sow per year. That's all the way to market. Now, these are pigs that were born that you just didn't raise. And we don't look at these as problem pigs. We look at these as opportunity pigs. We look at these as profit pigs. This is the same data of the experiment. And this is the group that we put through the Birthright decks. This means small pigs, sow reared, so these are the small pigs that we started on the nurse sow. And this means big pigs sow reared, and what that represents are the pigs that are left in the litter after we've taken the small ones away. We wanted to see how does the rest of the litter perform when we take those small pigs away. Now in this herd they had 11 born live, so we had 1 pig up in the deck and we had 10 down on the floor. And here's the 48-hour weights, the starting weights after they've had their colostrum. 1.05 kilograms, 1 kilogram, 1.82 kilograms. Now look at the 19-day weaning weights. 4.91 out of the deck versus 3.64 off the nurse sow. That's a difference in weaning of 1.27 kilograms between the nurse sow and the pigs that came out of the deck. Now, remember, these are the smallest pigs on the farm. What if the smallest pigs on your farm were 1.27 kilograms heavier coming out of Site 1, what effect would that have in Site 2 and Site 3? And then look at the pre-weaning mortality, 5 in the deck versus 26 on the nurse sow. You have to remember that these are the worst pigs on the farm, the smallest pigs on the farm. Now, we took those pigs through Site 2. In Site 2, of course, they're not getting any milk. They were in Site 2 for 35 days. We weaned at 19 days here, but anyway, now out of Site 2, look at the difference, 21.77 versus 17. That's a difference of 4.77 kilograms. Okay, what if all the smallest pigs on your farm were 4.77 kilograms heavier coming out of Site 2? What effect would that have in Site 3? And you're not going to believe it, but you know what? The pigs out of the deck, they actually bypassed the big pigs. Does that make any sense at all? You see those small pigs? They haven't seen mama since 48 hours. and they know how to drink milk and eat feed, so they go into site 2 and they really perform. Now, we had to end this experiment at about 75 kilograms because they selected replacement gilts out of this unit, but now in site 3, the big pigs did bypass the deck pigs a little bit, but it's not a statistical difference, and some people say, well, why? And some people say, well, maybe those small pigs don't have as many muscle fibers. You know, I don't know, I haven't tested that yet, you know, but that's one theory. But the small pigs in the deck grew well. Now this next table is very important when we're looking at the decks. Again, we did a weight distribution of the pigs when we ended the experiment because we wanted to show that the pigs that started in the deck, we wanted to show that they're good pigs on the finishing end. And we broke them down into weight categories, so we're doing a weight distribution. We've got our 3 groups now. This is all the sow-reared pigs on the farm. And you can see the smallest group was under 64 kilograms. 15% of the deck pigs were there. 25% of the small pigs reared on the sow were there. 10% of the big pigs were there. If we looked at all the pigs, it was 15. Now look at the next small group up, 42. But see, these numbers are bigger, showing there's more small pigs in these 3 groups. And if you look at the heaviest pigs on the finishing end, you know, the pigs that started in the deck had more heavy pigs. So the pigs that started in the deck, they had a weight distribution that was equal to or superior to all the other groups. But here's what really gets me with this data, because do you remember on these sow-reared pigs, the small pigs sow-reared, do you remember how many survived on the way to market? 50%. Now just think of that, 50% of all these small pigs that you started on the sow, they're already dead. And then, if you add these 2 numbers together, the smallest 2 groups, when we ended the experiment, 85% of the pigs that are left, the small pigs that are left that we started on the sow, they're in the bottom 2 weight categories. So what I'm saying to you, you know that small pig that you reared on the sow, the nurse sow, it didn't perform very well in site 2 and site 3. And I believe that it all goes back, to the difference that we had in the weaning weight. You know, we had a 1.27 kilogram difference in the weaning weight, and I believe that the weaning weight drives the performance in site 2 and site 3. I like to show people kind of what these pigs look like, and I want to tell you now, the first week in the deck, the pigs don't look very good. You know, they have long hair, they don't look very good, but they clean up, okay? But now, this guy, he's over 48 hours, but they threw him in there because you can see his ribs and his backbone. And if you ask me, this pig's looking for a place to die. We put a lot of pigs in there. They have the big heads. You know, they have a big head. Usually they don't make it. Here's the same pigs 5 days later, 5 days in the deck. There's 15 days in the deck. There they are coming out at you. We did not lose 1 pig in this deck, but they always have that little mark on the forehead. But 1 week after they're in site 2, you won't see that anymore. You won't be able to tell the difference in the pigs, and you don't have to feed them any differently. I don't know how to make this work, but this is a video. If you go on YouTube, and if you type in Birthright Deck, there's 8 videos. I've got the milk in Europe. There's 8 videos on, you know, that you can watch the little pigs in the deck. So if you go to YouTube and you type in Birthright Deck, you can actually see a lot of the equipment and the little pigs in the decks. And all the small pigs in Latin America, they're saying, please turn on the milk. I want to be a profit pig, please. Thank you.